Hi, and welcome to the 2-Minute Warning. I am your host, Perry Busby. The 2-Minute Warning is brought to you by the Westside Gazette newspaper, one of South Florida's oldest African-American owned newspaper that has been serving the South Florida area since 1971. My usual co-host, Mr. Bobby Henry, isn't here with me this evening. But here to join us is a brother who I have grown to know and really just enjoy just chopping it up with, and that's good brother, Mr. David Wright. David, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you this evening?
Just fine, just fine. So
good, and I just like to say, that no one can actually replace or fill in Brother Henry, but I'm gonna do my best.
All right. Bobby is a true one of a kind, and just really want to take time out to send our prayers to him and his wife Bertha as they travel. Understand they had to leave town, and so we send traveling mercies and pray for their safe return.
Absolutely, and I must add our condolences to the Harrison family as well. But we do pray that everything goes well and they return home safely.
Yes. Man, we today has been a hot topic sort of day. I know we were trying to figure out what we would talk about, but man, we just finished the last, or what is perceived to be the last January 6th committee hearing, and if there was some more telling evidence, and so I guess now that the big question is, what do we do with all of this information?
Wow, well, Merrick Garland has his job cut out for him, but we will see whether or not they actually move forward and do what they really should be doing.
Yeah, and either way, it's going to have a rippling effect, and whether or not that effect is a corrective or just a continuation of known ills that we are seeing that are made evident in this. Either way, I think the decision is going to be critical, not just in this, but how we see law and order even more, visibly in this country, and who it's for and who it's against.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they also need to just continue to stand on their word that, nobody is above the law.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I don't think that this is a Trump issue per se. Again, it's one of those things. This isn't new. This is a continuation of a problem that America, in some ways, refuses to address forthrightly.
Yes, and it's important that we as African Americans just stay tuned, be vigilant, keep our eyes and ears open, because we truly need to be the watchman in this situation, because we all know as when America catches a cold, we get pneumonia, and if this thing backfires, we are really going to feel the brunt of it.
Yeah, I agree, and again, as I said, I don't think that this is a Trump issue. He's the symbol, and I don't think that this is just a GOP problem. I think we have to address that there has always been an element amongst us, starting from the American Revolution, that was against this Constitution, and it has continued to populate and manifest itself in some pretty crazy ways. Right now, we're saying it's white nationalism, but I think it even goes beyond that, even to capitalism and willing participants. And I must say, when I say that, when we say white America, at least what I want to emphasize when I say white America, it's that white mindset and not white people. There's a mindset of, I believe, that persists, and we know that it persists even among those that look like us. And let's not, we won't waste our time with Herschel Walker. Those who, how they puppet. So
Yes,
when we
yes,
talk that white mindset, that's what I'm saying.
yes. It's unfortunate that they can find pawns to do their bidding. But
Yeah.
let's just say, this country has a history.
Hmm.
Uh, we, as African Americans, I could hopefully speak for, say that we've never felt that they've ever come clean,
Hmm.
in general, to especially with our relationship in this country. So a lot of us would say until that's done rightfully, then we can have a decent, sober conversation and move forward. Whether we get an apology or not, let's just have the dialogue and be honest in the conversation. Um, in the case in Georgia, listen, all I can say is if you living in Georgia watching this show, you please get out and vote.
Yes.
Do not play around with this election. Um, Galvanize everybody you know. This is truly a pivotal point for America right now, I believe, and we really need to pull ourselves up and do whatever we can to get our brothers and sisters to the polls.
Exactly. Uh, because we see that we're up against a relentless force that's seeking power. And you and I have talked about it. I sometimes say it looks as if we're in two different fights. We have one group that's fighting for power, and another that's fighting to save democracy. And one sounds noble,
Yeah,
but when one seeks power, that's a dark element. And so, how do we deal with these dark elements around us? And I say, let's shine a spotlight.
absolutely, and deflate them. We have
Yes.
to deflate all that gas, all that nonsense, all of that noise that they're spewing out daily.
Yeah.
And we have to have the right mindset to understand that it's just a distraction. It's
Yes.
trying to take us off of our game. It's trying to derail us from our focus
Hmm.
and getting the job done and creating the America that it it says it wants to be for
Hmm.
the people, but let's be that America.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great vision statement, and I'm glad you said that, because one way we can have that vision to change America is by changing the blocks that we live on. If we can start there, and as they say, all politics are local, and I'm happy tonight uh, to have three ladies who have taken a step forward to say that they want to help lead this community. And by this community, referring to District 3 in the city of Fort Lauderdale, which encompasses the Sistrunk, the historic Sistrunk area. And we definitely want to hear from those leaders, because the Sistrunk area is going through changes, as many of our historic African American communities have in this fight against gentrification. Let's just call it what it is.
Hmm.
Uh, So we want to hear from our lead from these potential leaders to help navigate us through this process that has already taken place. And so, where do we go in this? It's not a time to talk about the Fort Lauderdale of the past. We're in the Fort Lauderdale of the present, and we have got to navigate this, and we've got to bring some thought. And so, I'm happy tonight to have our three guests. There are four. Let me preface this: there are four candidates. And we extended the invitation to all four. Unfortunately, one candidate, Ms. Guthrie, did not respond. But we're happy to go forward with the three candidates who did. And so, without further delay, David, let's bring out our first one.
Absolutely. And again, I like to say, I believe they're all leaders in their own right. And we just pray now that one of them are going to take that leadership role, that mantle, and hopefully help flourish this 33311 area in Fort Lauderdale. But Brother Busby, I've had the privilege of introducing my dear sister, Yvette DuBose. And just a little backdrop on them because I really want them to come on and really share with us what they are all about, what they've done in their own words. We've all been given bios, but I just want to say a little snippet about Sister DuBose. She's a noted advocate, small business owner, nonprofit leader, and community connector. She served as CEO of a local nonprofit, currently serves as a statewide board member for the Art Gallery of Florida. So I'm going to leave it right there. I've known this young lady for some time now, and it's an honor and a privilege to introduce her to the 2-minute warning, Miss Yvette DuBose.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for the introduction. Do I take my 2 minutes now to give my opening? I'm a preacher's kid, so I don't want to make sure I'm good on time.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, very good. I am a local advocate, as you said, and have helped with more than 500 adoptions locally from foster care. My mother was the inspiration for this work and grew up in foster care in the 33311. I am a daughter of the district. And from my parents, my dad is a retired pastor and my mom a retired school teacher at Broward County Public Schools, I learned that service is required every day. And that's how I lead with everything that I do with my business, with my advocacy work, in motherhood, and just being an active resident. I think it's important that in the new phase, and we all talked about the precipice that we're on as a district, a lot of stuff happening east of us, south of us. And then how do we make sure that we get equity, right? Because equality is an equal part, but because we're playing catch up as a district, and we have been for some time, we need equity. So our piece of the pie needs to be a little bit bigger. Right? It's important that it's reflective of the vision that the community has for itself. Gentrification is happening, whether we want it to or not, it is happening. But it's important that we have a seat at the table, or we decide as a community to flip the table over and start fresh. I think we need a voice that will bring the entire community along. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of some very active constituents who believe that there's divisiveness right now in the community, and that doesn't help any of us. If we want to get our piece of the pie, to make sure that our needs and our vision for our community, for a safer community, for affordable housing, for a grocery store within walking distance, because right now we have a food apartheid. People used to say food desert, but a desert is naturally occurring. Apartheid is intentional, right? So when we talk about language, when we talk about equity for District 3, the entire district, not just the Sistrunk corridor, it's important we include the entire district. That's Melrose, that's Riverland, that's Rock Island, that's Golden Heights, that's Dillard, that's the entire district, that we include the vision we all have for our community. And we want what everyone else wants, a safe place to have our family. We want to be friendly to small businesses because we know that they employ 80% of our neighbors. We want to make sure that we have transportation to access, to live, work, and play here as a community. And we want to make sure that our culture, that our rich history is maintained. So how do you invite a new business and still keep your culture? So that's the conversation we have to have as a community. And collectively, our vision should be put forth, and we need an advocate. And I believe I have the most diverse experience as a small business owner, as a noted advocate in the community. I think we need someone that has that diverse experience on the dais that will lift the entire community up.
Well said. All right, Mr. Busby, we're gonna hand it over to you.
Okay.
For our next candidate.
Yeah, our next candidate, as David says, I will let her give her own bio. But I first met our next candidate, Dr. Nadine Hankerson, in the community. I met her as one of the leaders in Destination Sistrunk, and found her to be a wealth of knowledge, not just from given historical timelines, but from understanding the economic flows and disparity within the 3311 zip code. Dr. Hankerson earned a doctorate of philosophy from Nova Southeastern. She received her master's in economics from Clark Atlanta University. I know she has done has provided years of leadership with the Fort Lauderdale Parks and Rec Department, and her tireless work within the community. And I won't chop up her bio any more than that. I will let her give her stellar performance. Dr. Nadine Hankerson, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, to know a little bit more about me, I'm a native of Fort Lauderdale. Attended St. Thomas Aquinas High School, graduate left. I think you spoke about my undergraduate. I did my work at George Washington University. Also was an intern for Senator Lawton Childs. Left there, spent some time on a master's degree in economics, and spent a great number of time, or at least doing research, at Argonne National Laboratories in Chicago, where I developed models for dealing with energy-related issues, especially in underserved communities, why our electric bills are higher than others, why what we pay for energy and energy costs is more than others. So those things that have been dealing with people in community has always been one of the things that I've always been interested in. So that journey took me to West Africa, where I spent quite a few years working with women in development, as well as men, looking at economic models and how they can get their products, supply and demand to the market, as well as I've owned my own business for almost 35 years. And while I work with others to try to explain to them how economic models are set up in order for supply and demand to work within a community, I came back to, after living in a country that had a coup d'etat, so I deal with conflict quite often with a lot of groups of people, spent time in Haiti, working on some issues there. I've traveled from Cap Haitian to the south part of the country as well. Jeremy, I've been all through Haiti and several other Caribbean countries where I've provided consultancy for a vast majority of workers or engineers. I've also did a stay with PeopleSoft where I helped to build some tools that we deal with in the school systems right now today as a beta program for higher education on how we use and spend financial aid and how financial aid is processed and how it is done and processed within these school areas. So I have a vast background in terms of handling complex issues. So, as far as, and my undergraduate is in public affairs. And so I've spent time in different government and governmental settings, both home and abroad. But I'm here, I'm back home. I spend time taking care of two parents who are now deceased, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And I work vastly in this city. I work with Parks and Recreation since the age of 13, one of the first Black female lifeguards in the city of Fort Lauderdale. So Parks and Recreation is kind of my baby. And we've worked well to get things done over the years to advance at least pay grades, because our community was under the belt for many, many years, was not being paid the same thing as the people on the beach. And so I'm here wanting to take a real vast look at some of the issues that have plagued this community since we moved from a single member district, or well, from a at-large district to a single member district. And in my opinion, it's just not working for us. We spent over 40 years and we are where we are today. And I just think we can do better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And our last guest is Dr. Pam Beasley. Dr. Beasley is a product of Fort Lauderdale. She, like Ms. DuBose, and I dare say myself, are PKs. She is the daughter of Reverend James Beasley. And she is the president of the historic Dorsey Bend Civic Association, as well as the founder and CEO of the Unified Central Broward Neighborhoods Alliance. And with that, let's bring on Miss Pam Beasley. Pittman.
Oh yes, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I was saying, he keeps saying Beasley, you cannot leave off the Pittman. It's
I mean, and I am so sorry, right? Especially since he was your childhood sweetheart.
That's
yes.
I found that to be so interesting. I am so sorry.
Yes, I'm
Mr. Pittman.
Being that you're there, I'm just going to finish that story and then I'll go back. My husband and I, Wayne Pittman, have been married for 32 years. The first day of sixth grade, my husband told me he would marry me, and he did. He kept his word, and we are married 32 years, and we are parents of 3 adult children. To start from the beginning, I am Pam Beasley Pittman, a product of the city of Fort Lauderdale. I am the daughter of the late Reverend James E. Beasley and Ella Benefield Beasley. I am a minister and also a licensed chaplain. Retired 32-year civilian employee for the Broward Sheriff Office. As you stated, I'm the visionary CEO and the founder of United Central Broward Neighborhood Alliances. I am also current president of Historic Dorsey Riverbend Civic Association. I can tell you as well that I am the past president for Relay for Life American Cancer Society. Graduates I've done in this community, in this district, for the last years, and have been the one who's led that and brought this awareness to and all cancers to our community. Um, with that being said, I am just grateful tonight to be a part of this platform. And I will admit to even being proud of this opportunity to be in a campaign alongside the ladies that are here tonight, also Ms. Gertrude here. If not recognized, we're making tremendous strides in our efforts to be make a difference in our district. And I'm just proud, ladies. I want to say to each one of you, I'm proud to be among you in this race. In this race, what I bring the passion, I bring the hands-on experience that I've been working in the community for several years now. As the homeowners president, I was given the opportunity to walk in the door with putting my hands to the plow. I would say that again, working on the things are most concerning to the citizens of the district overall. I was one who was in the room when CRA funds are being distributed. I'm at those meetings, making advocacy conversations and discussions for those individuals who look like us, who are bringing projects and supporting those things that they're doing, as well as I am one of those individuals, which is one of many who supported the YMCA coming to our community. As well, I also one who is a member of the Fort Lauderdale Cemetery Board. Cemetery Board, when I tell people I'm on that board, they be like, why? But understanding the circle of life and also wanting to make sure there's dignity to our loved ones who we lay to rest. That's one of the issues that I'm really passionate about. And I keep telling when I have the opportunity that said it's reaching its capacity for burial space. January 2025, it is predicted there will be no additional space plots unless we make some true changes and have those conversations to offer additional opportunities for the citizens of the city overall. I am an advocate for what is fair and what is right. I'm one who listens to the heartbeat of the community, and I move on the actions and their demand. I want to be that person who is on the path as a team, District 3, not as an individual who is on a personal platform and instructing the community what we need, but listening to District 3 and working as a team to accomplish everything that we deserve and want. So that's who Pam Beasley Pittman is. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
What you think, Perry?
Oh, well,
Think we ready to get in some questions?
we're ready to get in some questions. And before we do want to invite our audience. I see Tamiko, Karma, Yvette, Yvette, Mr. Bose, of course, Sandra Sherfery. Another thing, Pip, we are asking you all, if you all have questions, please submit your questions. This is not an opportunity just for David and myself, and I do know that we have some good questions, but this is your opportunity to talk to your candidates. This is not an opportunity to just sit back, relax, and enjoy it. This is part of the problem we're having now with too many people relaxing and not enough people getting involved. So this is an opportunity to get involved. And let me say, I know we got 3 preachers' kids on here. We're going to keep this in order, you all. And I know we got one analyst, especially an economist, with Dr. Hankerson, and I know how we love to explain. But we're going to try to keep this to a limit, ladies, so that the audience can really ask questions. And I know you have a lot to say. But let's try to do that punch and get to the amen, and we'll go for the next 30 minutes. But David, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I want to kick us off with this one question that was given to me in reference to the city of Fort Lauderdale. Overall, is Fort Lauderdale overdeveloped? Why or why not? And we're going to keep it in alphabetical order. We're going to start with Sister DeBose and go on to Sister Hankerson and then Sister Pittman.
In alphabetical order, Beasley Pittman would be first, but I'm happy to go.
No, we are honoring Wayne Pittman.
You got it.
Well, since we started with you, we're going to keep it going in that order. All right.
I do think that some areas of Fort Lauderdale have experienced rapid development where infrastructure has not kept up with the building. I think there are obviously issues with building in our own community. We talked earlier about what gentrification looked like, but as it pertains to affordable housing, we actually have a deficit. It's not keeping up with demand for those working families who need affordable housing. I was on an earlier forum with the Democratic Club, and one of the things I spoke about was the 7-on-7 project, just south of Sunrise Boulevard, right next to Broward Partnership for the Homeless. And those are one of the agencies that I've worked with over the years, because there is an intersection between foster care, domestic violence, drug overdose. All those services work hand in hand. And that building, called 7-on-7, is dedicated. At least 50% of the inventory will be dedicated to families who've experienced homelessness. The starting rent is $371. And I'm saying that because when we talk about affordable housing and development and what that looks like, for District 3, we obviously need affordable housing, but affordable according to whom? It's very important when we have these conversations, whoever the voters decide to put in office. It's important that we factor in the median income here in District 4 is $46,000, right? And so if you're getting minimum wage, you're spending a good portion of your income on housing. And so when we talk about suggestions for developers that want to come and put things in our community, it can't just be a suggestion, because anything that's not mandated is not going to happen. It's just a suggestion. So when we talk about businesses and developers that want to put things in our community, it has to be mandated and required so that we can all live, work, and play here. So yes, there are some areas of Fort Lauderdale that are overdeveloped. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of saying no to development, smart development in District 3, because we have a deficit of affordable housing, and because we don't have enough small businesses that employ our neighbors that live, work, and play here. And I think what I bring to the table is that diverse experience and the know-how to initiate with other collaborative community agencies and business stakeholders. We need an economic hub. We need to train our workforce so that they're workforce ready. And we need to strongly encourage developers and businesses that come here to start with a minimum wage and make sure that they hire locally.
Okay. Same question, Sister Dr. Hankerson.
Yes, I believe we are overdeveloped, and overdeveloped from the standpoint of not really laying out a decent plan of action, but taking a look at the land that they've left deteriorated, that they've annexed, as well as created a 163 plan that came into the poor area, have stolen their legacy, and now are developing in our area without the input of the people who the land was originally owned by, from a 1941 ordinance that discussed the Negro District. And while the Negro District may not include the new annexed areas, which are the Melrose Park area, and at the time it was the other neighborhoods, Lauderdale Manors and the Rock Island areas. And while we've had these municipal areas that have been around for at least century plus, which are still our unincorporated Broward. They've got a new fancy name for them now. Whenever they try to hide something, they're always switching the name to something municipal something. But the bottom line is poor people. So with that being said, those areas, money was not provided at a fair rate by banks and others to develop those lands, and the money was taken and used for other purposes. So while we should have been developing in our own community and creating the things that we needed to create in order to make this the Negro District, which it should have been, it is now being carved out as a divide and conquer game between, why when the new immigrants show up, now it needs to be a problem. It doesn't have to be a problem. There needs to be a discussion. And, people of color have to start working as groups of people and understanding that politics works on a group methods and not work as amalgams. And so when we began to truly understand that and stop pitting against each other to make sure that we get what we need to get in order to develop what we have, at least what we're going to have left, which may be very little to nothing, because most of the land ownership right now is being owned by somebody that looks different than the people who the land was intended to be there for. But greater than that, on the overdevelopment, when the overdevelopment came about, the monies, we are still not seeing the accountability of it. And so when we talk about housing as a part of the overdevelopment, well, District 3 really didn't see much of that, not in terms of, I even hate using the word affordability because it really just doesn't exist, because what we have here is public-private housing, and it just does not work under the schematic model that's there. And yes, while they may be paying $375 to enter, believe me, in the next 10 years, if they remain there, they are still going to be in poverty and possibility of not being able to afford the rent. I met a man just the other day in the store and was asking questions just as a voter campaigning. And he says, you know what, miss, I have a voucher for $1,450 or whatever the voucher amount, somewhere close to $1,400. And he says, you know, they're asking me to pay an additional $1,900 a month because now the rent is probably $2,800 plus a month. And so guess what? That voucher does not fit. Those are public-private models, and they just don't fit. What poor people need, and I'm here not only just to represent poor people, but poor people happen to be a vast majority of what we have that has been blocked out as a part of District 3. It is one of the poorest out of the other 4 or 3 that we have. So when you're trying to house poor to near poor people, you need public housing, and public housing cannot happen without the Faircloth Amendment being lifted by the federal government that was put in place under HUD in 1937 in order to meet the needs of what was going on in our economy, the wars, and other things that happens in our lifetime. So in 1999, Clinton decided, along with a Republican Congress, to say that they were going to put a cap on municipal housing. And municipal housing gets paid for by operating budgets and capital budgets of the federal government that controls the construction and other maintenance aspects, which makes it truly affordable if folks were to be there. The cap in Broward County is 403. And believe me, we've met our cap. So we are not going to be building anything that looks like municipal housing. So any housing product that gets put together that equals a profit, it will not be affordable based on the income levels of people who live in District 3.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Hangerson. Same question to you, Dr. Pittman. Do you feel that Fort Lauderdale is overdeveloped? Why or why not? You're muted.
Right, unmuted. There we go.
Yes.
All right. I believe, okay, thank you. I believe that the city of Fort Lauderdale is overdeveloped, and I do believe so because of the lack of green space that is still available to us, and also things lady have so greatly shared with us. It's the same platform that I have. Yes, we need to be addressing affordable housing, but what is the definition to affordable housing? The overdevelopment that we have witnessed has been in the east part of our city. It has affected the infrastructure, and it has just been one issue after the other where a group of people are commissioners that were in place. They came up with this decision that this is what they were going to do. They agreed, they voted, and they carried it out. But at the same time, the city, the citizens, the neighbors have not benefited from the opportunity for housing. And just like it was said, who can afford $2,500 working at less than minimum wage or at what is considered minimum wage? So my answer to the question, yes, the city of Fort Lauderdale has and is overdeveloped. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to ask a question by Latricia Graves. Latricia asks, what is your stance regarding the redistricting?
Mm, mm. Can I go
Which
first? May I go first? I know you wanted to go. I know you wanted to go in alphabetical order. Whew,
Uh,
I'm sorry. If it's okay, I don't want to be out of order, but
we,
this is a great question,
uh,
and
okay. Is it okay? I mean, I
okay,
just,
I'm
Yeah, go
okay.
right
All
ahead.
right,
yeah, go ahead. Okay.
okay, all right. The redistricting, we experienced this because to explain to someone who may not know, with the census every 10 years, because of the increase of residents in an area, the district in a city are reconsidered and they're reconstructed. What we in the city of Fort Lauderdale has with in this last process, to me was frustrating and also disheartening. We witnessed suggestions of maps for the city. They did hire a private consultant, but even with the private consultants being considered, there was a lot of input as to where these lines should be drawn. And what's discouraging to me was to watch how a neighboring district is just continuing to creep and take and remove and um, take what is was known as the Black community. They are, forward with this, and they're coming and they are taking land and saying that it's okay. So my stance on it, we need to one when it's census time, we need to encourage our people to take part in the census. We need to understand those numbers matter. And once you understand the process and you are a part of it, we have a defense to keep those lines for shifting and we becoming a district that ain't completely attacked and all the way at because another district or other districts realize the value of the land and they're trying to come in and just populate and be a part of what we're trying in the district. So I'm very disheartened with the process recent.
Okay, and thank you for that. And I think we'll go in reverse order. Dr. Hankerson, same question from Latricia Graves. What is your stance regarding the redistricting?
Redistricting is or has always been an issue. And the major conversation that needs to be talked about is where the lines are being drawn. And one of the reasons is I think back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, there was a lawsuit that was filed here in Broward County because people of color didn't, or Black folks didn't have proper representation. And so some of these cities and the way they are drawing the lines are that they've annexed what should have been and should have been residential housing and the replacement of people within their communities, but they were being moved out. And so a lot of that is racial injustice. And in my opinion, we should be filing lawsuits and we have to begin to stand up and fight back against the elephant in the room, which is racism that nobody wants to talk about. So I'm saying is that if we're going to continue to have a level of equity at the table, it's going to have to be able to talk about racism and have some direct conversations without feeling uncomfortable with speaking about being Black and Black representation within our communities.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great answer there. Sister DeBose, same question. What is your stance regarding the redistricting?
So redistricting happens naturally, as was mentioned with the two other ladies. It happened in response to the flow of people. It happens in response to the census. We know that locally redistricting happened or had to happen because there's a certain amount of people that have to be within the lines of a district to keep it equitable for all districts. I think it's about 45,000 per district. So we know that that's happening. I think statewide and I think nationally, we as a community and we're a very diverse community. Black people are not a monolith. I do want to say that. So we do have a diverse community in District 3. It is majority minority, but within that we have diversity. I think it's important to not exclude any community by saying pitting us against each other. I think, like it's been said before, we're stronger together. And we have a brown community. We have a very diverse Caribbean community within the district. And we have also Black Americans. And we also have, some people who are not from Wakanda who live in the district as well. It's important to be inclusive of people that do live, work, and play here and own homes here and businesses here. With that said, the process that the city did locally, and I went to and attended in person and on Zoom meetings about the redistricting, I did see the feelings of some residents who didn't want to be a part of the Black district, which was disheartening to see that in 2022 to hear some people think that they're going to get less than. And so what I would say is, how do you think we feel? We're here fighting for our equity, and you don't want to be part of the district. So how do you think we feel? So we're here saying change is happening. We want to be a part of the change as it happens. We want to be included. And my stance has always been, as an advocate, we have to amplify all voices. So if we have to redistrict, it's something that is required by law, that happens every so many years with the flow of people. It's important that we are transparent with the process. It's important that we are inclusive of the process. And it's important that we come together as a community and not divide the community with the process.
All right, Brother Perry, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Well, let me see if we have some other questions. Let's see. Okay, I'll have a question unless you want to go ahead.
Well, I do, because I mean, we have three dynamic individuals here, and to see all of this energy, all of this passion for this community, only one of you are going to actually represent District 3. In saying that, what are you guys committed to in supporting of whoever wins and continuing to fight and to push for what this community needs? And I'm just going to open that up. Whoever feels like jumping in, just jump right in.
Well, I'll start. I do think it's important. We all say, and Ms. Guthrie was on an earlier forum that we were on about an hour ago or so. I do think it's important to note that we're all community advocates and activists in our own right. And I do think it's important as a community that we coalesce behind whoever the voters support, whoever the voters vote in, because it truly is up to the voters, not the politics and all that other stuff. It's important that we coalesce and say we're going to support who our community votes for. With that said, I think it's important to respect the office. I think it's important to have an open door policy. We all have our own relationships within the community. But in order to move us forward, it's important that we support who the voters pick and that we are inclusive, not just of the people who vote for you, inclusive of everybody.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes.
I think
I agree. Okay. I agree with what Yvette is saying. We will, I know I win, lose, or draw. I'm here for the community. I'm going to continue to work and work with whoever's in the position, because my passion is not for this passion is for the will of the people. I want to be that person who's that voice. I want to work for change, and change is the answer. The vehicle that's driven to get there, I get in the car. Long as we're all on the same page in order to reach that conclusion and that resolve, I'm willing to work with the person who is elected, and I will follow the will of the people, and I will openly support whoever is elected as commissioner for this district.
Great, great. Dr. Henderson?
I've already shown that to be the case. Under Bobby DuBose, I worked for 8 years on the Budget and Finance Committee for the city of Fort Lauderdale. Also worked with the Firemen's Bond. I also worked with Parks and Recreation in making sure that it was fair and just to us. Under Robert's administration, I really didn't do as much. Well, one, I wasn't asked. And secondly, I had a parent who I needed to make sure uh, that she was taken care of. And so my time was sparse in terms of all of the community activities that was before me. However, I'm going to say is that I'm always open for assisting. But what I am hoping in this election is to bring attention to voter fatigue. Our voters are just not showing up, and the data reflects that and in big ways. In 2015, Robert McKenzie only received uh, less than, well, really about 12. In 2015, he received maybe about 1305, which is 1,305 votes. And in 2018, he received a little over 1,200 votes. And with Donna Guthrie having a solid 800, in Bobby DuBose era, he never got over 1,000 votes. So it's what I'm saying to you guys is that we are in a district with over 30,000 people in it. And somehow, whatever it is we've been doing over the last, I'm not going to even go back 30 years. I'm saying what we've been doing over the last 25 years has not been working for us. People are not participating. They seem not to be concerned in regards to our voting and what's happening there. Because even when you take a look at the county numbers, they are low compared for which is now District 8 and the redistricting. So I'm saying is that what it is that we need to come up with something different. It's just not working, so that we can be part of a participatory process that is very important for the sustainability of people of color being a part of this process with the city of Fort Lauderdale.
Perry, she bowling down our alley, Perry.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we're going to go to Sandra because I really want to follow up Nadine's question. But we're going to let Sandra because this is first. What are your thoughts on contracting with BSO to providing policing to the city of Fort Lauderdale? Who wants to handle that one first?
I'm fine with it. I am about taking a look at all possibilities because one of the things that another elephant in the room, we don't want to look at Black safety. It's important. Black people are being killed far in excess numbers to others. They're being arrested far in excess to others, and therefore, brown folks are being arrested far more than others. So we need to begin to take a real good look at what kind of people are posted up in our policing department, because Black safety matters. I mean, people today, we can't even go to church without having the military arms that are there. So I'm not sure of BSO in terms of its relationship to the city. It seems to have been doing, a better job overall, but it has come with a lot of angst over the years And so we need to really begin taking a look at the data and how people are being treated, and take a look at the folks who they employ in these jobs, and begin removing folks who don't have the heart for folks that may not look like them. And that goes for Black folks too. If you are there discriminating, you need to pack up and go. We need to get people who have a shared love for humanity, and they need to be in them jobs. You can have your little prejudice, but you can't bring them to work with you. And so what we got to do is begin taking a real good look at how these places are staffed, and the people and their hearts and minds, and working with folks in the community, and we need to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else on that topic?
I would like to expound on that.
Okay.
The city of Fort Lauderdale, I think that that's in our police department. We need to begin to work and create those relationships that would change the culture of our police department. I'm fortunate to be a part of the police chief focus community group. I'm on the committee that deals with diversity and succession, also for training diversity. And we do not need to eliminate our city police. We need our police for our city. We need that representation. Well, what we do need to do is be a part of the process, understanding and demanding the type of training that would give us the diversity that we're looking for the hiring of individuals that would represent our city and our district. So overall, I don't think BSO is the answer for our city. We need to work with our police department, be a part of the process, because there are opportunities for city members to be a part of different boards within the police department, and conversations, creating relationships, becoming a community where we're willing to work one with the other. And that will begin to bridge that problem that we're facing within our police department. But I believe that we need to continue to embrace our city police, embracing them in a manner where we can reach that change and begin to receive the change in the relationship between community and law enforcement. And that's something we definitely can accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Sister DeBose, go ahead.
Sure. And so I'll piggyback on some of the sentiments that were said earlier. When we say community policing, what does that mean? More than 85% of the police don't live in the community that they serve. I think in order to have community policing, it's important that you know who is protecting, who's sworn to serve as part of the first response team. And that's the 988 social services that are called for mental health services. A lot before the number premiered this summer, 988, a lot of people called 911. So that's one of the challenges of having workforce that is trained and skilled to deal with multicultural and de-escalating. It's also a challenge to have DEI in the workforce, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it's very important that the officers, the first responders, reflect the community that they serve. It's one of the things that I mandated as a local CEO here for a nonprofit. If 85% of the children are removed from the 33311 and look like me, the board needs to be reflective and have that diversity, because some things can't be taught looking at data. Some things are lived experience. And it's very important for any officer or first responders that serve a community, that you live in a community. These are your neighbors. And I think that will also help with community relations with the police department, which has been touch and go over the years historically. And Fort Lauderdale is no different. The Northwest of Fort Lauderdale is no different than any other minority majority district. So I would also take pause to look at the financial impact that contracting with BSO over what we currently pay as it relates to the budget, which kind of kicked in October 1, the approved budget for the new year. And so what the financial impact would look like. Aside from the challenges I've already stated about diversity, equity, inclusion, about local police officers living in the communities that they work and serve, and also amplifying the voices of the community, saying, this is a problem for me. This officer may have repeated history of being aggressive. I remember, because I'm raising Black boys with my husband, and I remember when he was pulled over at night because the windows were too dark. Now, how you can tell that at night, but we had to teach the boys, this is how you respond. And then you had to make a formal complaint and start that process to put it on notice. But being Black in America, being a minority in America, there's two sets of laws, and we live in two Americas, and that's one conversation we can probably have and expound on, that there are two sets of rules for us. And it's unfortunate, and we have to have intentional conversations to move us forward. But I would like to revisit the conversation about hiring locally, hiring from the community, and what the policy is on diversity, equity, inclusion for the current staff and upper management. Great, you have officers that look like me. What about the managers?
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, Perry, we got a couple more questions out there. I want to take a stab at one. This one came from Hester Elaine Samuels. Do you have a specific youth-focused goal for the district?
I will say yes.
Emphasis on the goal.
Yes. One of the things I alluded to earlier is that we don't have a grocer within walkable distance within the district. You have to have a car or public transportation to get to the grocery store. And we call that a food apartheid because it's intentional, right? But if last year when my teenager wanted to get a job, he needed a car to work. So how are we preparing our young people if there's limited small businesses that can help them with apprenticeship or help them with their first job if they don't also have a car to do that? How are we employing our summer kids who are off during the summer? There was a program that could have employed 400 people, but that money went to something else. And that's a whole other conversation within the district. So the goal for our youth, as an advocate for youth, is to either make them college ready, workforce ready, and provide early entrepreneurship and financial literacy. There are already programs happening in great organizations within the community, but the city has not partnered with that. I think leveraging the partnership with the city will amplify the amazing mission work that's already happening within the district to help our youth be workforce ready and or prepared for college with the life skills that come with that for those next steps.
Stepping up next to share my answer. Specific youth focus groups for the district. I'm a true advocate of nonprofits working and partnering with them. There's many opportunities through our nonprofits, but we do need to bring the city in to work with them, making and bringing it known that they even exist in the community and that they are available. Mr. Vos, you mentioned a program that would have employed 400 youth this summer. I know nothing about that program, and I would love to know what that program was, because through this summer and every through
the funding was moved.
Riverbend,
but yeah, I'm happy to send that to you.
That's okay, because for the funds moves the program. What is the program? I don't know anything about this program. And being in this district and working closely with city, I haven't been exposed to this particular program that you're citing. I would love to know that. However, moving forward, we as a community, it's time for us to do what we know how to do. Stand up, unite, and work together to make sure that this generation, the millennials, those Generation Zs that are coming up behind us, that we are interacting with them, having these conversations with them, allowing them a platform, and allowing them to shadow individuals who are on the trajectory of making change. There's so many times that we won't our people an opportunity to express themselves. During the pandemic, through historic Dorsey Riverbend, we offered a program called Hot Dogs, Hamburgers, and Healing. We did this after the George Floyd incident. We put a tent in the backyard. We brought youth from the community and brought in a local law enforcement, individuals from Black Lives Matters, and we allowed a platform for our young people to what was concerning them, ask they needed to ask, and receive an answer. These are the type of things that we need to implement. Time out for saying that they'll be all right. They have more knowledge than we did. It's time for action and pulling our community together. That means everyone, not just a select group of people, but everyone in this district needs to pull together, and let's make a difference and make our young people available to what we have through nonprofits in this district and in the city.
Okay, Dr. Hankerson, same question.
Yes.
Do you have
As
a
one who
specific?
has been, yes. Do I have a specific use focus goal for the district? I do. We need to teach civics. It needs to be at the top of the list because we can't afford to have another generation of children that don't show up and exercise their inalienable right. One who has taught in the school system I've taught elementary, I've taught middle school, I've taught high school, I've taught college. I've been a person who have worked in administration. So I'm saying to you is that one of the key factors that youth in our community from the very stage they can start speaking need to understand the importance of being a citizen as a part of a quasi-democracy in which we live in at this time to exercise their rights so that we don't have 12 and 1,300 people out of 30,000 people within a district showing up at the polls. So my goal would be to create a civics curriculum that can start from birth.
All right.
Okay. Okay. I do have a question. In fact, my question is going to be a two-part question. And I do want to preface this by, as I sometimes like to say, for the past 6 years, I've been a spectator to Fort Lauderdale and Broward County politics. As a spectator, it's given me the ability to talk to people across the board. Some that know the history, and others that just tell me what they see. Dr. Hankerson alluded to this in terms of the turnout of the district. How? Let me put this. We know there's a vision for Fort Lauderdale. There is a vision for Fort Lauderdale that is being exacted, and I would dare say it is on plan. We also know that there was Black leadership involved who said some of the same things that's being said tonight that led to what we are now saying, this predicament that we are in. How can we quit talking to each other? Because we all know that number Nadine says that are going to vote. But this community is full of people who are disenfranchised, not with politics, but with their leaders. So what is it that you can do? Let's, as they say, campaigning is poetry and being the elected official is prose. Tell me if your current body of supporters is that left out voice. And if not, how do you plan to speak for people that you are not having in your campaign? What can we do to satisfy that? Is my first question. Secondly, let's be honest. If elected, do you feel as though you're going to be a voice in the wilderness on your issues? Because it's not just going to take one of you. It's going to take those around the dais, those on the county, those in the state, all the way up to our Congress people. Do we have that bunker head, or do you feel like you are going to be either a part of the progress that is already taking place, or you're going to be an agent of change? I think that is the question that our people really need to hear. All of the other stuff we've encompassed tonight goes in that one thing. They want to know, are you going to be real? And I mean that about people on the street. Because it's more people who may not vote than those who are voting, and we'll end up, as I say, we don't end up with leaders. We end up with people who were left out in the front. So what leadership are you going to bring to help bring the people who desperately want to show up and vote for a leader?
I'd like to take a stab at that first, if you don't mind, Mr. Busby. I think it's important. Like I said, the place that I come from is as real as you can get when you help the least, the lost, and the left out. That's what I do, right? And I think it's important that we are transparent and honest about what's happening, and that hasn't been the case with transparency and keeping all of our neighbors in the know, keeping all of our neighbors in communication, not just the ones who voted for us and support us, even the ones we don't like. And that's the problem with the divisiveness that we have now. It is not inclusive, the process that is happening now. It's not inclusive with projects happening now. It's not inclusive with the agenda items happening now. And we find out after the fact or in reading the newspaper. And the constituents, the voters hold the power. So it's important, no matter who is elected, that you hold every elected person accountable. And some people may see this campaign as an opportunity. I see it as a responsibility. I see it as a responsibility because, like I said, we're on the precipice of so many things happening in our community. And if we don't have the right person who has the entire community in mind, it is to our detriment. So we have to stop the infighting. We have to stop the politics that is them versus us. It's us for us. And everything about us should include us. That includes development, that includes projects, new business, everything. We should have a say-so, not just our representative. We're speaking on behalf of the community. So we have to bring the community along. And I'll say this and allow the other ladies to respond. My mentor said this to me: talent can get you in the room, but character will keep you there. And I have that.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Hankerson, Ms. Pittman.
Well,
what's your vision, and how do you and what's your vision?
My vision is I bring to the table a degree of understanding of the knowledge that is required for public policy, as well as understanding the politics of containment versus the politics of access. A large part of our leadership has been dependent upon somebody else telling you what's going on versus you knowing how to go in, collect that data, read it, analyze it, and be able to interpret it to your community in a way that they understand and whether or not it's going to be beneficiary to them over a long period of time. That is something that we have been lacking in our leadership. That communication in terms of what's happening, most of the time from these city managers, they bring in to these commissioners, these models and other things that they want to do without them really, truly bringing together the knowledge that is needed there to say, hey, this is not what is going to be beneficiary for our community. Now, what is it that we can do to help plug up some of these holes, as well as what's going on? Because we really are not really putting any say into what happens in other parts of Fort Lauderdale. We don't just live in District 3, we live throughout the city of Fort Lauderdale. And our one vote is not being put into place in terms of our movement throughout the rest of the city. So those are some of the things that need to be brought to the table, and having somebody in place who truly can take that information and the data there and speak on behalf of it, but be able to interpret it to our community to make sure that we're understanding that we need doors of access, not just the, I'm just going to just be there to be there for a vote. We need folks who's going to stand up and speak, because I'm not, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When I go and sit at the dais, I'm not going to be fed a bunch of junk and walk away and, feeling like our community is not going to be heard. That's just not going to be me. I'm not going to be that candidate. I'm going to be that candidate that is going to do her homework. I'm going to come to the table and say, this is how it can benefit us. And then they are going to come to the table with what they feel is going to best benefit their constituents as well. And we will be finding some level of sweet spot with the equilibrium that is going to be for the greater good of the community. Yes, we're going to give a little bit, but it's time that we get something in return. And what has happened in our community, it just has not been to the level where it should be for us to see the real change, to get our voters to come to the polls and say we are worthy of a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Pittman?
All right. Yes, foundation. Foundation is where I'm placing my sword in this conversation. We have to rebuild our foundation. We need to, again, as I said before, we need to unify. We need to have this transparency. We need to give awareness until this community, as we come together to unify and begin to work together and lay a foundation where we're able to grow. We're not going to see those voters where we are right now. We have a generation, millennials, and those generation Z's that's coming up behind them. They have no faith in our local government. They have no faith in government at all. But once we begin to bring them in, allow their voice to be heard, then we'll be able to work together and we'll see the change we're working for. I'm a kid that's come the attitude that our team, we District 3, to do. Personally, that means that I'm going to be tiny town. Most people have to come to take the information to our constituents. I want to see in our district a caucus from a caucus in the civic association, bringing representatives from each one of those communities. We'll have that voice and know the direction that we're going in. And until we make that foundation, repair the foundation, build the trust on the foundation, invite in, be a part of the process, we won't see the change. And with my approach, I know that we'll see the change by inviting everyone in to be a part of the process. And that's what I'm going to bring to the table.
Okay. We have time for one more question. David, do you want to close us out with that question? And then after we have this last question, I will allow you to have 30 seconds. 30 seconds to close, please. David, do you have one final question or?
Well, I really would like to just kind of follow up on what you've started here, because I think that's a very important topic. We have to continue to uh, devise a plan. We've seen what's happened in the past, and we know what's not working. So we really need to hear the plan as to how we're going to make it work. And I think it also makes sense to find out if there's a coalition in place, or are we doing this all on our own, or are we consulting with individuals, or do we, how we're coming about gathering the data to decipher what's really happening, and how we're going to bring it back to the community and make a stand, make them understand, engage our community in your processes, because that's what leadership is all about. When we talk about being leaders in this community, it's galvanizing people, creating the new leaders, but bringing the people to want to follow you and be a part of this. And Nadine, Dr. Hankerson, you kind of alluded to the inactivity in our election process, but I just want to hear more. How we're going to get, uh, how do you guys propose on getting more folks involved in this process? That's still near and dear to me and my heart in this community, being a product of this community. Um, you know, this is a conversation we have on a regular basis, and I guess I'm just asking for a follow up on some of the things that Perry just asked you.
Are
Well,
you?
I go back to what I said in my sorry. Okay. What I want to express is my goal is to create a caucus that involves, again, members from each of the communities around us. There's 15 communities within District 3. Voices that need to be heard. Each community is unique, means that um, and then also overall what's affecting the district overall, and then the city at large. With this, I believe the voices, understanding what the individuals and the neighbors want to address, this is the first step. The voice. We have to hear what it is that the individuals and what needs to be addressed. A lot of things that we're saying tonight in certain areas is not even an issue to them. So they're not going to be interested in talking about that particular matter. However, there is that issue that is close to their heart. Bring it out. Let's bring it to the table for we can address it, and take and come to a point where we resolve the issue. But without bringing in the neighbors, allowing them to have the voice and utilize their voice, we're not going to change the foundation. We have cracks in it. People do not feel that they're being heard. So if I'm not being heard, why should I vote? If I'm going to
Mhm.
vote, why would I vote for someone who's not listening to me? So my game plan, start on the ground, getting to know what it is that the people want. Because we got to start at on this journey at step one. We understand the trajectory, we understand the things that are facing us overall. But the person who is hungry, they're not worrying about how many buildings are going up on the east side. They're trying to get for markets in their communities. The ones who do not have opportunity, the infrastructure with internet. Do we realize how bad it is in our community where people do not have access to internet? When the
Mhm.
pandemic was going on, there was children who could not be receive their lessons through the offers of the laptops because they did not have internet. They were
Mhm.
sitting in the parking lots of restaurants, in the parking lots of the library, trying to get internet. Why is that we do not have internet that's available for the city? district. It makes no sense. So these are the type of things, the foundation. Let's start with the foundation, addressing what needs to be addressed. And from there, we can climb and reach and fix everything that is going wrong in our community. But we got to start at the bottom. We can't leave nobody behind.
Dr. Hankerson?
In science, one of the things I've learned is that when you survey and hear the voices of the people, then you must take what it is they're saying and find out whether you can find that balance with the politics of containment, which we have a lot of that in Broward County. So some of the issues that the people within District 3, which are poor to near poor people, we do have a small population of people who may be doing better than others. But the bottom line is some of the goods and services that we are not getting is because advocating for them requires a supply and demand issue that is not being met by those who make decisions on behalf of the city. And I'm going to say that one, by supermarkets. I know for a fact that under Bobby DuBose's administration, they looked far and near to bring grocery stores to our community. The grocery stores, the big chains, declined. They didn't want to come. I know for a fact that Milton Jones and his group went out looking as well. They even went to conferences begging grocery stores to come here. Publix would not show up at the door. Winn-Dixie didn't show up at the door. The only folks that we got coming into our communities in order to provide that level of goods and services were the stores that deals with poverty areas throughout the United States. So that's why you see in our communities a lot of the Family Dollars and other stores. And while we advocated, there were many people out there who were advocating for other brands to come, they would not come. So now that's something that we have to look at from a civil rights level. And so while our people are yearning for certain things to come to their communities, there are the politics of containment that's there that's not allowing you to have access. And so we need to begin to be able to explain to our people why certain things are not coming to us. It is not that we are not there advocating for them. There are different rules and regulations that are blocking it. And if we are not willing to want to stand up, and it requires numbers, that's why your voter participation is important. You're going to have to stand up the same way you had your foreparents had to stand up for you in order to not sit on the back of the bus, for you to have access to go into a school, to have a textbook, and for you to have other rights and privileges that you at least enjoy today. So unless we are going to decide that we're going to stand up and get rid of some of those things that are blocking our access and that our leaders are not explaining to us well, these access that politics of containment is doing for us, you have to understand what those things are set up to do. And if we're not going to stand up and fight against it, then we're going to continue to have this same old talk over and over and over again. There has got to be a level of passion and a purpose at the table in order to make that transition. Amen. So if we ready, then we got to pick a leader who's going to help us get there.
All right. Sister Yvette DuBose.
Great. I think that voter atrophy and voters not turning out is that they don't see the importance of their vote. I think it's very important to note that so many times, and we have Black women here on the forum, and we know that we are the largest consistent voting bloc within a specific party, even though this is a nonpartisan race. So I'm not speaking directly to the sister circle because we get out and do what we need to do as a consistent voting bloc. I will say that in speaking with many voters over the last year or so on my listening tour, of the district, voters don't feel like their issues are being heard. Voters don't feel like the leaders who are in office or have position but maybe no power feel like what they say doesn't matter and what is important to them doesn't matter. There is a huge diversity within the greater Fort Lauderdale community, and all issues aren't the same. Like I said earlier, Black people are not a monolith. I think it's also important for us to go back to what our blueprint is. When we had galvanizing power within the minority community, we had a leader who was a servant leader who put the community first, not themselves. So if the community doesn't feel like the leader has a vision, they're not going to follow. So it's important whoever we elect has a vision and that the community feels like that person is for the entire community and not for themselves. So when we say community minded and public servant and servant leadership, it means it's not about me or anyone else that's speaking tonight. It is about our community. And we know that our community needs a bigger piece of the pie in equity. We can only do that when we exercise our civic rights. So I'm on Get Out the Vote Broward. I'm a part of Tri-County Black Voters. And I'm posting almost every week in partnership with some other amazing nonprofit groups who are trying to galvanize young people to get out the vote. And on something early this morning around 11, one of the callers called in, new voter, and said, I don't think my vote matters. And then just reviewing some of the things that are on the ballot this year, I was like, you know, your local politics is more impactful than your federal election right now. And this is why, this is how it impacts you like tomorrow. And I think it's important that we have to educate. We have to meet people where they are. We tend to, those of us in the bubble, preach to people. We already get it. We're part of the voting block. It's important that we meet people where they are and make it plain. If you don't vote, this is what will happen. Literally, our democracy is on the line. So we have to galvanize, engage our Black church, and engage our leaders in the community. Everyone, even those who you may not feel lovey-dovey about, we all have to be on the same page. And that's the problem. We have our individual silo agendas. This is a responsibility we all have as activists and advocates within our community. It is our job to each one teach one, give someone a ride to the polls, participate in Souls to the Polls, pick up a senior, make sure that they turn their ballot in. It's important we all do it. We can't just talk about it. We have to actually do it.
All right, guys, we've kind of gone over tonight, but this was power packed. I knew it was going to be exciting from the beginning. Here, we were kind of bracing ourselves for this.
Yeah. So, ladies, again, briefly, let's give us 30 seconds, and in the 30 seconds, let's let the audience know where they can reach your campaign, and also put it in the slides so we can post them. And again, thank all of you for taking out this time.
Yes.
And I wish all of you the best. We know that there can only be one ultimate winner in this, but I think our community wins wins in the whole when capable leaders such as yourself get involved at this level. And I know that once you get involved, you pretty much stay involved at this level. So again, thank you. And each of you, if you could just give us 30 seconds. Starting. Ms. Hankerson, you never started, so we'll start with you at the end.
Okay. I'm Nadine Hankerson, and I come to the table with a wealth of knowledge to help sort out the politics of containment to get us to the politics of access. And what I can promise you is a knowledge base that you will truly begin to understand what is happening policy-wise as to when we get it or if we don't get it. you will have a clear picture of that. That is what I can promise you in my candidacy if I'm elected to District 3. We can begin taking a look at some of the things that will affect us down the line. Wingate, Dewars, Black land does matter. We have other areas around here that are being affected also by gentrification in terms of what's going to happen with transportation, what's going to happen with housing, because housing is just not going to happen unless you've got some income. So we've got to look at income-based things. I'm not one who advocates for jobs. I advocate for livelihoods. And if you're going to have a livelihood, you're going to have to be able to teach it. So we're going to have to begin to look at our school curriculums and begin understanding what it is it's going to be able to create a livelihood for you to be able to afford what it is you need to within your lifetime. So I'm that candidate who can help you provide and have a better understanding of the knowledge base that needs to be at the table to negotiate for the greater good. I'm Nadine Hankerson. Elect me as your District 3 person to provide that information for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Pittman?
Thank you. I am Pam Beasley Pittman, candidate for the City of Fort Lauderdale District 3. I'm your candidate with passion, with experience, with a heart to work for our district and for our city. It's time that we unify, come together, and work to achieve the goals that we desire for our community. You can learn more about my platform at PamBeasleyPittman.com. Again, that's PamBeasley.com. And I invite you to come by my headquarters at 2151 Six Trunk Boulevard. Again, that's 51 Six Trunk Boulevard. I would love to sit and talk with you and share with you more in detail on a personal conversation about things that affect you and are concerning you. We can talk about how we as a can resolve. Again, Beasley, vote for me, and we know that election November 8th. And if you have those mail-in ballots, fill them out, return them, and also you're able to take advantage of early voting. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm grateful to be in this race with the women that I am among tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DuBose?
Thank you again for everyone who put this forum on tonight, for the opportunity to share my platform. I believe I'm the candidate with the most diverse experience as a noted advocate in the nonprofit world, helping the least, the lost, and the left out, as a small business owner with connections and relationships with the business community and stakeholders, and as a visionary. I was just endorsed by the Sun Sentinel, with Broward Young Democrats, the Democratic Executive Committee, Dolphin Democrats, Moms Demand Action, amazing grassroots groups who have been marginalized historically and have coalesced behind my campaign because they know my work in the community as an advocate long before I filed my paperwork. I think it's important that we have an advocate at the dais who puts the community first. I think it's important that we have an advocate at the dais who will be inclusive of the entire community, not just those who vote. I think it's important to have a candidate who's going to coalesce to make sure that all voices are heard and all voices are amplified. Like I said before, everything about us should include us. I want a seat at the table. And if my neighbors say we need to flip the table over and start over, we're going to do that as well. I have no problem with that. But I'm also able to build and work across the aisle and have a proven record of doing so. Again, I believe I have the most diverse experience in this race and have amazing community support. I hope to earn your vote on November 8th, or voting early starts October 24th. I appreciate any support. You can reach my campaign at YvetteDubose.com, YvetteDubose.com. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we go, Brother David, you want to introduce our student athlete of the week?
Yes, we have a student athlete of the week, Mr. Jamari Haynes of Plantation High School, the Plantation Colonels.
All
That's our
right.
student athlete. He wears number 1 with the Colonels. I hear they're doing pretty well this season.
Okay.
And we just want to acknowledge all of our student athletes. We encourage them to go out and get their education, put in just as much work in the classroom as they do on the field. And today we salute Mr. Jamari Haynes.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. But before we go, we do encourage you to please go back and listen to some of our previous episodes. If you note of anyone that was impacted by Hurricane Ian, I encourage you to listen to our show last week when we talked to officials from FEMA and Miss Janice Allen, I believe that's the name, who writes for paper in the Daytona area, and she's been a leader in terms of helping those, because we know that the city of the community of Duncan, and I think there is another one, the name forgets me, who are not receiving the support, which is nothing new. But I encourage you to go back, take a look at that, and again, join us next week. But before we go, we do want to. I do want to continue with a segment for 1 minute because I know Ari and the crew got to go. But I do want to leave you with this one segment. And David, I'm gonna ask you, how bad do you want it?
How bad do you want it? Wow. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to give up to get it?
Right, right. And I say that because I met David through getting to understand South Florida politics. And I want to encourage all of us. We often talk about how bad politics is and how, and you listen to some young people who say they just don't want to participate. But I want to turn that question around and say, how bad do you want this? Whatever that little bit that you have. How bad do you want it? Are you willing to lose more? And like I say, I've seen too much lost in this generation. I was born in '64, the year before the Voting Rights Act, and in my lifetime, I've seen what was handed to me as a gift and a birthright get diluted. And so I don't want to get stuck on my laurels about how much I am involved in politics. I'm at a point where I'm asking myself, what am I willing to do? Because there's more that can be lost. So it's not for me to get caught up in, or all of us to get caught up in how much we are involved, but more or less, what is it that we can do better? And how can we lend ourselves to this greater good? Because I truly believe that, as all of you and people that I've met in and around Broward, everyone wants the best of Broward. Everyone wants the best of their community. The struggle is, how do we get it in light of forces working against us? And so that's the question I ask. How bad do we want it? And I believe November 8th will prove to some degree how bad we want it and what track we are on to either gaining more or losing more ground. So I leave you with that. Let's think about that, and we're going to see you next week. Brother David, thank you, my brother, for joining us. This has been a great show. Lead us out.
Man, it's been my pleasure. Again, kudos to all of our panelists tonight. A great group of panelists. I'm just elated. I'm just I'm speechless, and that's rare. But I wish you all the best, and may God bless.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying up in the late hour. Thank you, ladies. Look forward to seeing you out on the campaign trail. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.